Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be discussing 7 movements for a healthy spine. Don't take the title too seriously. It's a little bit of a clickbait title, but that doesn't matter. The point is just I'm showing you a few movements that you can use to help promote and maintain your spine health and mobility. I think it's really important for any athlete, any person, especially as you get older. The spine is meant to move in a lot of different ways. So the more access you have to that kind of movement and control, the better off you're going to be. That being said, I can't tell you how these exercises are going to feel for you, so you have to try them out yourself. I'm not treating this as an ultimate guide to what you need to do for your spine. Not at all. Not all of these exercises are going to be great for every person. I don't know what's going on with you, what kind of injuries you have, what kind of restrictions you have, so that's something that you have to try and figure out on your own. That being said, I don't want to talk too long in the intro, so let's get into the movements. The first movement is going to be called the 3D twist, and essentially what we're going to do is rotate the body and then add a little bit of hip bend so the rotation can start out in a vertical standing position, and then we can gradually tilt it down and take it horizontal. You can twist as slow as you want, so you can treat the twist as something where there's no momentum and you're just playing with how much rotation you have. I like to look up at the hand as well when I'm in that hip hinge, and I can bend my knees as much as I need to because I am focusing because I am focusing mainly on the spine. It doesn't matter if I bend my knees or not. I don't necessarily get any advantage from having completely locked knees, but I do like to look up in the direction that I'm twisting. You can do it with straight arms, you can do it with bent arms. There's a lot of options here. And then if you want to, you can also add the momentum, right? So now it's not a strict twist. I'm adding a little bit of speed to that rotation, but it's just a great way to get some rotation into your spine, and this way we're adding different dimensions, different axes, different elements. So next movement we're going to do is the roll up. Basically it involves spinal flexion extension, so there's no rotation here. There is going to be a hip hinge as well. Again, for this hip hinge you don't need to keep a locked out knee or anything like that because the focus is on the spine, so you use whatever flexibility that you have to make it work. So it's going to look like this. I keep my back extended. I think of extending through the top of the head. Keep that straight line as long as I can, and then I bend. I let my back round. I let gravity pull everything down, and then keeping my knees soft, I slowly extend up, segmenting through the low back, through the mid back, through the upper back, and then finishing extending the top of the head and standing up straight. So a few reps in a row. It's going to look like this. It's a great way to kind of reset everything, get nice and loose. Back when I took a lot of contemporary dance classes, this was a movement that we did a lot, both in the warm-up and especially kind of in the cool down, just to reset everything. Arms can stay loose, right? Make it feel natural, fluid, flowing, but the idea is extend, stay tall, stay long on the way forward, then bend, then round as much as you can, and then very loose, gentle, relaxed on the roll up. So next exercise is the figure 8. This one is fantastic because it works the spine in a number of different directions and axes, and actually also has a lot of carryover towards locomotion and many other physical disciplines. So basically you're just drawing a figure 8. It's good to get your arms out of the way, so one way that I can do that is just by crossing, so I'm not moving so much with the arms but focusing on the spine. And basically here's the movement. So you have this lateral flexion, right, where one side gets short and one side gets long, and then you have rotation, and it's essentially a combination of that rotation and lateral flexion. So I rotate, I bend to the side, and this is the backwards figure 8. We can go forwards as well. I sweep up, rotating, and then I switch because now I'm rotated to the other side. I bend, sweep, bend and sweep. And that's what the movement looks like. Same thing going forward, right? I curl from the side, rotate, switch, rotate, switch. This one is kind of not the easiest one to explain, but I think once you start doing it, it'll make more sense in the body. Again, this is fantastic because walking, running, all of that, you know, a lot of striking movements, a lot of throwing movements involve that core motion. So that figure eight is a really good way to unlock a lot of movement that you should have, but also make that connection to different physical endeavors. Now, if you watch some of my videos, you know that I enjoy the rope flow, and that's kind of where this movement is coming from as well. So if I do a figure eight with the rope, it's that same idea, but now I'm using that spine movement to drive the rope. And then same thing if I go forwards. The thing is, with the rope, you might just be using your arms. So that's why I like it without the rope as well, and with the arms crossed, because then you know you can isolate the movement of the spine and the core and the midsection, but the rope kind of integrates all of that together. But yeah, that's the figure eight. Fantastic movement. Next exercise is the metronome. So this is a cool one. It involves flexion and extension and a little bit of hip involvement as well. But the goal is not to do too much with the hips, but really to focus on the spine. So it's a metronome because it goes like this. I have a handstand metronome exercise I use as well, but that's a different video. So I have the arms up. I'm tall. I bend back. And as I bend back, the hips go forward. For this one, I try to keep the knees pretty straight. I try not to use the knees to get lower. It's just the hips forward and then arching the back. Then I bend forward and I round the back, and then I can go into that kind of roll up position that we did before. So in this one, I'll keep the arms extended. I'll keep the arms long, reach the hips forward, and then here I can bend my knees and round. So I'm going through flexion, extension in the spine with a little bit of hip movement. This one's really good as a preparation for a lot of gymnastics movements. So that could be used as a warm-up or as a drill for a lot of these kind of skills. But by itself, also really good. You can scale it down by just not going as far, right? I can go like this. I can keep the movement as small as I need to still feel that and still feel that intention. But once you get a good range of motion, it's a cool looking exercise. And it feels great to do. So that would be the metronome. Next exercise is the cat camel, and this is a pretty classic one that you'll see in a lot of fitness texts. Some people call it the cat cow, but to me I figure this is the cat and then this is the camel because it's a hump. But anyway, it involves a flexion and extension of the spine. You can do the whole thing at once. You can also add a bit of scapular movement, so I can retract the scapula when I arch and then protract when I round. I can try to go slow and segment it, right? I can go lower back to mid back to upper back, or I can do the whole thing at once. I can add some speed into it. I can add some side bends and actually turn it into a whole circular movement. Makes for good dance moves too, but really good way to get the spine moving. Really gentle, low impact. Again, go slow, find the range of motion that you have available, but essentially the basis is you're going into as much of an arch as you can and then as round as you can. And one of the things that helps me to get a little bit more round, one cue that I like, so I'm pushing down with the arms, but I'm also pushing that way into shoulder flexion, because as I do that, I can use the ground as leverage to get a little bit more of a round back. But anyway, this is the cat camel. Very classic, very simple exercise, but has a ton of benefits. So next is the turtle movement, which is kind of an ironic name because this is the worst position for a turtle to be in, is on its back. But basically there's a few iterations of it. I like it because you can use gravity a little bit, you can use the floor to get better spinal segmentation, and I get some actually good cracks out of it as well. So I start from sitting, I roll back to standing, I pull my knees in, and I lift my legs to try to get them all the way behind me in kind of the plow position. Then I'll roll through, and then I'll come back up. So you can do it grabbing the knees. You can add a little bit of speed and momentum. You can also do it very slow, completely controlled. All of these variations are fantastic. That's a really good stretch right there. So fantastic, right? There's a press handstand version of this that I use as well. It looks something like that. You'll see this if you watch kind of gymnastics warm-ups. We'll do this tuck and roll after they do back bending to kind of reset the spine. Flat surface is better compared to grass where there's, you know, random twigs and stuff. But I wanted to film it outside. But yeah, this is a turtle movement. It feels good. I get some cracks, I can reset, and it's always good to be able to interface with the floor in different ways just in case you end up falling on it for whatever reason. So that would be the turtle. And the final movement for this video is the standing spine circle. So this shares some similarity with the figure eight, but basically instead of rotating, it's going to involve flexion extension and again that lateral flexion. So I'll show you a couple different angles. And once again, I like to isolate the arms, so cross is a good position because then you know you're using more of the spine. Basically, I'm going to extend the spine, go into my side flexion, flex the spine, maintaining the side flexion, roll through to the other side. So now I'm side flexing on the left and then extending. So it looks like this. The goal is to try not to use your hips very much. So try to keep the hips, shoulders isolated, just focusing on the spine. Sideways angle looks like this. Of course, you should be going slower than what I'm doing, especially if you're still just learning and trying to understand the movement. That's what it looks like. Again, another really good 3D movement that combines a lot of elements with how the spine can move. Another movement that probably the textbook will say you should never do because the spine is meant to be neutral all the time and that's how you should move. If you look at the reality, the spine is meant to move. That's why there's so many bones in it. So the more control of it you have in different ranges, the better it's going to be. And then when you do experience those positions in the real world, you're prepared for them because you've been through them before. I'll show you from the back what it looks like. Whoa. So spinal circle. And if you want to make this more difficult, right, you can hug a dumbbell. You can hug a weight in your hands, and then you can add a little bit more challenge, a little bit more resistance, right? If you want to do it kneeling, you know, sitting, you can do it in the cat-camel position as we showed before. So yeah, all it is just a combination of flexion extension and lateral flexion. And with that, you draw a circle. So that is the final healthy spine movement for this video. So there you have it, 7 movements for a healthy spine. Now again, just to be clear, just to reiterate, these are not the most basic movements, and maybe they're a little bit controversial in some circles. I think these are all good ways that the spine should move, and ways that you will find the spine does move in the real world if you actually analyze real sports where people move outside of a lab. Again, some people say that you should keep your spine in neutral all the time. You do you. This is not my opinion. I think a healthy spine is a strong and mobile spine, so the more control over everything you have, the better it's going to be for you. Again, if you have injuries, take it slow. These are not the most basic movements. So somebody who is completely new to training, somebody who hasn't done a lot of movement, maybe these aren't the best exercises to try from the beginning, or maybe just go really slow and try to do a scaled down version so you can understand it and how it feels in your body, and you can get over whatever restrictions you have. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Let me know what else you'd like to see on this channel, and I'll try to get it done at some point. Like, share, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoy my content.